Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Trust me when I say we always broadcast live on YouTube, and we are broadcasting live right now, and this is definitely a time where you want to check this out, because this is not an everyday thing where you have the former #1 wrestler in the world in studio, along with two very beautiful young ladies. They're in town for Impact Wrestling. We've got Rob Van Dam in studio with his dog. She is very, very sweet. And also Tessa Blanchard in studio, along with Katie Forbes. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. How you guys doing?
Excellent, dude. Good morning.
Thanks
Good morning.
For having us.
I thought you were calling Katie my dog, dude.
No.
Oh, okay.
Listen, Rob, you could kill me in like 3 seconds with like one move, so I would never do anything to offend a man of your size. Trust me.
It's a wise decision, Brian.
So you guys are performing you're going to be at Sam's Town, right, which is a cool place. All of you have been there before, right? You've done this.
That's our regular spot.
Yeah, talk to me about the venue a little bit. You like it there?
Yeah, I do. You know what I mean? It's a lot more intimate than say the 30,000 seat arenas. I
was going to ask you about that because back in the day, you were literally wrestling in front of like a T-Mobile Arena type place, right?
Sure.
Domes, right, in front of 30 or 40,000 people
every night.
What is that like? I mean, I asked musicians the same question. You're performing. You're an entertainer, right? What is that like? And do you get nervous those days before you get in the ring in front of 30 or 40,000 people?
It's just another night at work. I mean, I've been doing it 30 years. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm a little bit used to it. But it's awesome though. You know what I mean? Like when I was with WWE before Impact Wrestling. I would come out in the daytime because we're there all day at the arena.
Right.
And just look at the stands and just hope, that it's full and kind of visualize and imagine it packed with people. And when I'd come out through the curtain and they're all going RVD, dude, I totally
that's adrenaline, right?
Totally tapped into that
that's
energy.
Awesome.
I counted on it like I needed that. I was like, oh, here it is. Yeah.
Who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
It changed a bit. The guy that inspired me the most is someone that no one else will ever claim to be their favorite, and it was Leaping Lanny Poffo.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you even know who he is?
Yeah, I've heard of him before. I've never watched him, but I've certainly heard of that name before.
Nobody ever knew, but he was Randy Macho Man Savage's brother.
Right.
And he was a guy that would get beat all the time, but as a fan, he is. As a fan, I was really behind him. Like I kept thinking, tonight's his night. I know he's gonna take it tonight, because he would think outside the box. Back then, it was all 280-pound dudes, and like he would do like a back handspring, and that was just unseen in the WWF, which is what I was watching. Some flying head scissors. Right. Whoa! What the? And so he inspired me to think outside the box and want to be a high flyer. And I always tried to think of moves that I hadn't seen before. Now everyone just does what RVD does.
So I watched the 30-30 on Andre the Giant. He was one of my favorites growing up. Did you ever spend time with Andre the Giant, like just grab a beer? Or I imagine he would have like 30 beers in like 5 minutes. I've heard some of the stories. Have you ever hung out with Andre the Giant?
The only time that I met Andre was when I was a fan. It was at my very first live wrestling show. And I had an insider that got me back by the dressing room where the wrestlers were coming out. I got to meet Andre the Giant, Hillbilly Jim.
Hillbilly Jim.
Yeah. Killer Bees.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I grew up in the era of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Bushwhackers, obviously Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, the Honky Tonk Man, the Ultimate Warrior. Sadly, Macho Man Randy Savage, some of these people are not with us anymore.
Dude, you don't look as old as me.
You're being very kind. I'm very old, actually. You have two extremely attractive women. One of them who is draped all over you. I'm very, very jealous, Rob. Her name is Katie Forbes. You're also going to be wrestling, my understanding, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Sam's Town.
Yeah.
Let me go to Tessa, who is joining us as well. You're a professional wrestler. When did you start?
I actually started 6 years ago. When I was 18 years old. I'm 24 now.
So you hear a lot of women, in their mid-20s, maybe they're in business, maybe they own their own business, whatever they are, there's all sorts of different jobs you could do out there, right? But not many women at the age of 18 can say they started as a professional wrestler. So what made you decide to do this for a living?
Well, it was never my dream to be a pro wrestler. Growing up, I actually wanted to do musical theater.
That's a far cry from what you're doing
I know, crazy, right? But it was something just my dad always was. My dad, my stepdad, my grandpa. It was just something that was always in the family. I would get to hear stories. I would get to go through photo albums and old newspaper articles and old cards, and it was just something in my family. And I didn't really grasp, I think, how big the Four Horsemen really were until 2012 when we went to the WWE Hall of Fame. My dad was inducted that year, and just we're walking into the American Airlines Arena backstage, and fans are like cheering for, Arn and Rick and my dad and Barry, and it's just crazy. I love old school wrestling now, and I'm super passionate about it. My favorite wrestler of all time is Johnny Valentine.
Oh, great one.
I think he's just the best heel of all time. Him versus Wahoo McDaniels, I think it was like 70-something. I got to go back and look. It's one of my favorite matches, though.
So who taught you? Who taught you how to wrestle? Was it members of your family? I mean, who were you trained by? When
I first started wrestling, I didn't tell anyone in my family. Actually, I did it on my own, and I trained with George South from WCW.
Wow. What's the strangest thing that's ever happened to you in the ring in the 6 years you've been doing this?
I think that in wrestling, a lot of strange things happen. A lot of cool things happen. I went through a time maybe 3.5 years ago where I was hurt in the ring on purpose from another wrestler, and that was a difficult thing for me to go through.
So hold on. You're telling me that you're in the ring against another wrestler, a female wrestler, and she hurt you on purpose?
Yeah, but I think through everything that we go through, you grow and
how does that happen?
I'm not going to get all into it. I probably shouldn't have even brought it up. But
that's I've never heard of that before. Rob, has that ever happened to you where you were in the ring with somebody and they hurt?
Rob probably kill him before it could happen.
That's unbelievable.
But no, absolutely. It used to be more that way. Like in my generation, we had to get beat up even before they would even give us a shot of being in the door. That's like the first thing. We call it stretched.
So you really had to, spar with somebody, or what were you doing?
No, it's more so I'm remembering this night. I'm in Tampa, Florida, right? And I was just, very young, 20, and I was kind of cocky, and hey, I'm a kickboxer, I'm tough, and all this. And anyway, they had me. I didn't even realize it was going on until it was already happening. But Jumbo Beretta was the guy, this big 400-pound dude that would fight in UFW? Anyway, in Japan, this was a shoot group. So he knew submission, and he was, an actual. And they said, well, what you say you're a martial artist? Show us what you got. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And hey, throw a kick at me. I'm like, whoa. Would you want me? He goes, no, go ahead, lay it in. I want to see how hard you kick. And, I gave him a round kick. He grabbed my leg and just dragged me down to the mat, sat on top of me and bent my leg into a knee bar and pulled on it.
God.
I didn't even know I was supposed to tap at first. I mean, at the end of that night, the promoter, Ron Slinker, said, "You did good, kid. You did good." He said you got a lot of respect for hanging in there. Dude, I was rubber bodied, not rubber legged. Like I was trying to walk
so
after
basically,
that.
to get accepted, you have to get your ass kicked.
It used to be more that way. Now it used to be so many changes.
Are they afraid of lawsuits now? Do you think that's a part of it?
That's part of it. It's a more professional environment now. It used to be a closed door society, and it was protect the business first, like the mafia. You know what I mean?
Gosh, that is unbelievable.
As far as injuries go in situations like that, I mean, did you sign a waiver of some sort that where it takes away the company's liability for if you do get very injured under those circumstances?
Well, when you sign the big contracts now, that's included. Like you sign a deal with WWE, it's a 3-year deal, it's a phone book, and it definitely says in there, I release you of everything. Wow. But also, though, anytime I've needed medical attention when I'm on the road, the promoter's always taken care of it without even hesitating. Wow. Including WWE. I had to have my knee reconstructed, and I was off for a full year.
This is a very physical form of entertaining that you're doing, and I don't think some people understand what you guys have to go through, your bodies especially. If you're just joining us, we're talking to the people from Impact Wrestling, legend Rob Van Dam, former #1 wrestler in the world. Tessa Blanchard is also here along with Katie Forbes. So Tessa, your father's Tully, right? Correct?
Yes.
Tully. So a legend. What is it like following in your dad's footsteps? I would imagine he must be very proud of you for what you're doing.
Definitely. I live with this pressure on my shoulders, but I work pretty well under pressure. I feel the pressure to carry on my family name, to do my dad and my grandpa and my stepdad proud, but also to create my own path at the same time. You know, like Rob said, wrestling has changed. Wrestling's not what it used to be. I'm not ignorant to that. And what I'm doing right now in Impact is it's something that's done on the independent circuit, but it's not really done on TV. It's something that makes people uncomfortable. It's not traditional. It's not something that families sit down and get to watch on Monday nights.
Sure.
But that's what I love about
Tuesday
it.
nights, right? Impact Wrestling is aired on Tuesday nights. So I wanted to ask you.
Access TV.
Yes.
People always ask, where is it now?
It's
Access.
awesome. It's a great channel, by the way. I've seen some great
Brian,
stuff on that channel.
You might not know this, but you probably heard that it used to be territorial in wrestling.
Yes.
It used to be. So the Blanchards actually owned San Antonio, right? And so it's
Southwest Championship.
Yeah,
Really?
So it's not just that her dad was on TV, which people with limited knowledge, might think that, but the fact is that they were one of the main promoters. Like, you would go and work for the Blanchards if you were doing the San Antonio loop, and then
That's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds a lot like
Von Erichs in Dallas.
fighting.
It's crazy.
It sounds a lot like fighting with my family.
Hey, I see what you did there.
Like your life was. It's almost like that movie was based on your family.
I worked on that movie.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was.
That's very cool.
I did all the wrestling for Paige.
So one of my favorite movies is The Wrestler, and Mickey Rourke. I thought he was
great movie.
fantastic. It's one of my. I have a big poster of that movie in my apartment. I love that movie. So going through what you've been through with your family and what you do, Tessa, do you think that movie is fairly accurate to, in some instances, what people have to go through in the wrestling business?
Maybe so. I think more so maybe for old school wrestling, or I shouldn't even say old school, just like how it used to be.
Sure.
Based on stories that I've heard. I'm still young. I've only been wrestling for 6 years, but wrestling has changed a lot.
No question.
The independent circuit is much different. The TV companies are different
Sure.
than they used to be. Everything evolves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So wrestling where it is now is different than it was then. But I do
question.
believe, based on stories that I've heard from my dad, my stepdad, that it has a pretty clear look at how some people's lives may have been in the
Not as
wrestling
glamorous
business then.
as you might think it to be. Not everybody could be the former -- wrestler in the world,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, honestly, what we do, we're very blessed to have the lives that we have. We get
Sure.
to do what we love as a career. But
Sure.
it's a hard lifestyle.
No question.
It's a lonely
You gotta earn
lifestyle.
it. You don't become a superstar overnight. You have to earn it. No question. There's no question about that. Well, they are Impact wrestlers, Rob Van Dam, Tessa Blanchard. We're going to take a quick break, but before I do that, I'm going to give away a pair of tickets for Impact Wrestling.
Yes.
That's right. Good for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday at Sam's Town. Here's what I'm going to do. Fifth caller right now, 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call right now, fifth caller, 702-257-5396. You are going to win a pair of tickets to see the legend himself, Rob Van Dam, in action with Tessa and, of course, Katie as well. Fifth caller right now, 702-257-5396. You just scored yourself a pair of tickets. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back right after this. You are listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. All right, welcome back. It is The Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, glad you could join us. Not every day you have the former #1 wrestler in the world in studio. He is Rob Van Dam. He calls Las Vegas his home. Impact Wrestling is going to be at Sam's Town Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Rob joins us in studio with the very lovely Katie Forbes, who's also a wrestler in her own right. And you brought your dog as well. She is so well trained. It is unbelievable. So we're on YouTube streaming, by the way, if you want to take a look at this, the Vegas Take YouTube page. Your dog is the most well-behaved dog I have ever seen in my life. She's just sitting there so quiet, just giving me a stare.
Confirm your dog is a Boston Terrier, not a French Bulldog, correct? Okay.
People make that mistake all the time.
Yes.
They're very similar.
So Rob, you've suffered, I would imagine, some serious injuries over the course of your career. How many concussions would you estimate you've had since you started doing this for a living?
500.
500?
Yes.
Now, most people would say you know that would affect you a great deal.
Yeah.
I mean, so how have you had any effects from all those concussions? Like,
Well, you know what? I've never had any last longer than, usually it's just a few seconds and I shake it off. Sometimes it's the rest of the night. I've had it last longer than that, just a handful of times.
So do you have any, any symptoms from?
Yeah, one damn concussion that I got November 12th, 2016. It wasn't even like a chair shot to the head or anything. It was like a rolling, like I got this weird arm drag from Pentagon Jr. and I rolled through it and the back of my head hit. When I got up, I was seeing double. And that's something I'm used to. I've seen it hundreds of times. So So
sometimes you see double.
Yeah, I grab there. Sometimes everything's in slow motion. Sometimes like the sound is out on everything. God. Yeah, I think Rob, it might depend on where I get hit in the head. But there's all these different symptoms.
When you see, you hear these stories of these NFL players just losing their minds and going crazy. Because of the CTE stuff,
yes,
that's got to affect you. Do you ever say to yourself, "Am I going to be that guy in 20 years from now?" Like this,
yes.
I mean, that's got to go through your mind.
Yes, and that's why that is the exact passion for why I just started this this new venture, RVD CBDs.
Mm-hmm.
Because
tell us about that.
Yeah, well, okay, so a lot of my friends kill themselves going down the road that you're talking about.
Wrestlers.
I mean, yes, wrestlers die. Wrestlers die very young statistically.
How many
either
people?
An opioid overdose, which is accidental, or after they get concussions, they get depressed.
How many personal people that you've known that you've wrestled with have committed suicide? Would you say in your career that you've known or become friends with?
I'm going to guess I could think of like 12 to 15.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Some of these guys were like Mike Awesome, for instance, was very. He was a good friend of mine. Ashton Massaro last year.
That's terrible. And you think it's because of the injuries they've sustained over time that changes the makeup in their brain? Because there are studies that prove that.
The study started, I think, when Chris Benoit killed himself after he killed his family.
I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that started. So we started. Chris Nowinski started looking at the brains of wrestlers and comparing it to the football players, because they had studied like 121 NFL brains, and like I think 120 of them had CTE. They suspected it. They were brains they were looking for it. But dude, I have all this captured on a documentary because I was gonna do a stand-up comedy tour like a week and bring a camera, and it would have just been capturing the tour. But I showed up with double vision, and I kept thinking, well, I'll be fine tomorrow. But dude, that lasted like at least a year and a half. In fact, I still sometimes, if I tilt my head a certain way,
you get double vision.
I do, yeah, and then it'll go right back when I tilt my head back. But it's still not the same as it was. But I have all this on a documentary called Headstrong.
So I have to watch that.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and I'm very, very proud of the movie.
So what would you say to people? And I want
to talk about concussions because I want to move
get the
forward.
Word out.
Yeah.
What would you say to the people that would say, well, listen, nobody forced you to be a wrestler, just like an NFL player. This is the price you pay for a very physical job. What would you say to people like that? Do you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I take full responsibility. But throughout my career, I didn't actually understand that there could be long-term damage. Mm-hmm. None of us did until, last, 10 years or so.
Sure.
But I thought it was just part of the job, and I was proud to show the crowd how much I could endure. Balls Mahoney would go crack with that chair on my head.
And you took it.
Yeah, and then, like I say, sometimes
all to entertain the fans, and then you have to suffer and pay the price for that for the rest of your life.
Well, maybe, but that's why, I was reading an article. The NFL was looking into CBGs because they actually can regenerate dead brain tissue.
Right.
And they're talking about everything, from oxygen therapy to stem cells to whatever. But I said, you know what, I want to get on this and try to put it together.
To help other people.
Yeah. So RVD CBD right now, I just have a couple products, but the main product that I'll always be working on until I get it is a neural protector.
Yeah.
For my peers and for me, because you're right. I don't have anything. I've gotten checked out. Spoiler for the movie. No CTE, but I don't know.
Thank God.
I don't know later on in life.
You never know, of course.
You're very, very well versed in cannabinoids, and there's a new one that just came out a couple days ago called THCP, which apparently is 8 times stronger than standard THC.
So here's what's great that you got to realize. Marijuana plant's been around forever. We only talked about THC until recently.
Yep.
And then CBD. And then, now we're talking CBG, CBN. And there's like about 100 components, cannabinoids, that are in the plant. And we're still only talking about a few of them because it's illegal to study it. So now that it's getting legalized in state compliant people can study. I think they call them clinical studies or whatever they get around it. Now we're learning just a little bit. We have so far to go, though. You know, we're going to learn so much, and we'll be able to isolate.
You're helping a lot of people with doing what you're doing and spreading the word. There's no question. Well, now I want to get as many people as I can out to Sam's Town this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So for people that have not seen Impact Wrestling before, talk to us a little bit about what to expect for people that are thinking of buying some tickets.
Well, it's the style, you know, today is a lot different because it's so acrobatic, and a lot of these guys grew up watching me. And as a matter of fact, pretty much all of this generation of wrestlers. So with Impact, they have some characters for sure, and they have some amazing wrestlers. Like I probably haven't told them all, like, hey, dude, by the way,
you're awesome.
Holy crap.
Right.
They do. Yeah. Like, you know, people used to think I could fly just because I would do like a Rolling Thunder.
Right.
And, you know, we got a bunch of guys that are doing every flip and every kick, everyone. But, it's a really good show. And Tessa, you know, she fights guys too, by the way. I don't even know if you know that. Yeah,
I believe that.
I would be willing
really
to get
tough.
hurt to get into the ring with you, but it probably wouldn't end very well for me. But anyway, well, listen, Rob, you are an absolute legend in this business.
Yes.
We're so glad that you call Vegas your home. I've seen you in action before. You are unbelievable. And Impact Wrestling, you guys do a fantastic job.
And thank you for this.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the gift you have given
the
us.
RVD rolling paper.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Rob, thank you so much for being here. And you as well, Katie, thank you so much for being here as well. We want to get as many people as possible out there to Sam's Town Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Impact Wrestling. Check it out. Call Sam's Town. Purchase tickets. Rob, thank you so much for being here as always.
Can we drop our social media?
Absolutely. Do it.
Follow me everywhere at The Real RVD, but also follow RVD CBD on Instagram because they post way more than I do.
Awesome.
What about you, Katie Forbes?
You can find me everywhere at the Katie Forbes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Katie, Rob, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks,
Take a quick break. We'll get Mike Babcock from TMZ Sports coming up next.